Have you ever felt overwhelmed, drained, or disrespected in a relationship? If your answer is yes, then this discussion on the importance of boundaries in relationships might be just what you need. Let's start by defining what boundaries mean in the context of relationships. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define where one person ends and another begins. They're not about creating barriers or distancing oneself, but about maintaining a healthy relationship. Boundaries help in creating a safe space where both partners feel respected and valued. They allow each person to express their needs and desires without fear of judgment or retaliation. Without boundaries, one might feel like they're losing their identity, constantly giving more than they're getting, or living on an emotional roller coaster. Now, you might be wondering, what does setting healthy boundaries look like? Well, it's not about imposing rigid rules or being overly controlling. It's about communication, respect, and mutual understanding. It's about expressing what you're comfortable with and what you're not in a respectful and assertive manner. It's about recognizing your worth and standing up for your needs and feelings. And it's important to remember that boundaries can and should be flexible. They might change as the relationship evolves, as you grow, or as your circumstances change. That's perfectly okay. What's essential is that the boundaries you set are respected by both parties. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're selfish or unloving. On the contrary, it shows that you care about the relationship and want to ensure its health and sustainability. It's about saying, I value myself, I value you, and I want our relationship to be a space of mutual respect and understanding. So whether you're feeling overwhelmed, disrespected, or unfulfilled in your relationships, consider whether you've set clear boundaries. And if you haven't, it's never too late to start. Remember, the absence of boundaries in a relationship can lead to toxicity and unhealthy dynamics. So let's make sure we're setting ourselves and our relationships up for success by understanding and implementing healthy boundaries. So what exactly are these boundaries we're talking about? Well, in the context of a relationship, boundaries are like invisible lines that define where you end and where your partner begins. They help us understand what we're comfortable with and what we're not. There are 6 main types we'll discuss today: physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, financial, and time boundaries. Let's start with physical boundaries. These refer to your personal space and physical touch. For example, if you're someone who values your personal space and doesn't appreciate uninvited touches, then you've set a physical boundary. Next, we have emotional boundaries. These involve your feelings and how much emotional support you're willing to give and receive. Say, for instance, you're someone who needs to process emotions on your own before discussing them. That's an emotional boundary. Then there are intellectual boundaries. These pertain to your thoughts and ideas. If you're someone who likes to engage in deep discussions but prefers not to debate about certain sensitive topics, that's an intellectual boundary. Spiritual boundaries, on the other hand, protect your beliefs and values. For example, if you prefer to keep your spiritual practices private, that's a spiritual boundary. Financial boundaries revolve around how you manage your money. Perhaps you're someone who likes to keep your financial matters private. Or maybe you have specific rules about lending money. Those are examples of financial boundaries. Finally, there are time boundaries. These involve how you spend your time. If you're someone who values alone time or prioritizes certain activities and prefers not to be disturbed during those periods, you've set a time boundary. Remember, setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish or controlling. It's about respecting your own needs and creating a healthy balance in your relationships. Whether it's deciding how much personal space you need, how you manage your money, or how you spend your time, setting boundaries is a vital part of self-care. As you can see, boundaries encompass various aspects of our lives and relationships. Now that we know what boundaries are, how do we set them? Well, the art of setting boundaries involves a few crucial steps, and like any art, it requires practice and patience. Firstly, identify your limits. Reflect on past experiences that left you feeling uncomfortable or drained. These could be signs of violated boundaries. Ask yourself what makes you feel safe, respected, and valued in a relationship. Write these down if it helps. It's essential to be aware of your needs and wants. Once you've identified your boundaries, the next step is to communicate them clearly. This doesn't mean you have to deliver a formal speech to your partner. It can be as simple as saying, I feel overwhelmed when we spend every single day together. I need at least one day a week to focus on myself. Remember, effective communication is a two-way street. It's not just about expressing your needs, but also about listening to and understanding your partners. Now here's where it gets a bit tricky. Setting boundaries also means dealing with the potential discomfort that can arise. Not everyone will respond positively to your boundaries. Some might even try to cross them. It's important to stand firm even when it feels uncomfortable. Remember, it's not about control, but about mutual respect. Consistency is key in maintaining boundaries. It's one thing to set a boundary and another to uphold it. Be consistent and remind your partner of your boundaries if they forget. It's not always easy, but it's important for the health and longevity of your relationship. Lastly, don't forget to respect your partner's boundaries as well. Just as you have your own boundaries, they do too. Respect their boundaries and expect the same in return. This mutual respect is the foundation of a healthy relationship. Remember, setting boundaries is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process that evolves as you grow and change. It's about finding a balance between your own needs and the needs of your partner. Setting boundaries might not be easy, but it's a skill that can be learned and practiced. So keep practicing and refining your skill and watch as your relationships flourish. Boundaries are not about being selfish or controlling, yet why do some people think they are? Let's tackle some of the common misconceptions about boundaries. First off, there's the idea that setting boundaries means you're selfish. This couldn't be further from the truth. Boundaries are not about prioritizing your needs over others. Rather, they're about understanding and respecting your own limits and communicating these to others. It's about self-care, not self-centeredness. Another misconception is that boundaries are a form of control. This is a misunderstanding. Boundaries aren't about controlling others, but about maintaining control over your own life and well-being. They're about defining what you will and will not accept, not controlling what others can and cannot do. Then there's the belief that if you love someone, you shouldn't need boundaries. This is a dangerous myth. Love does not erase the need for personal space and respect. In fact, setting boundaries can deepen trust and understanding in a relationship. It shows that you value not only the other person's well-being, but your own as well. There's also the fear that boundaries will push people away. But here's the thing, if someone respects you, they will respect your boundaries. And if they don't, well, that says more about them than it does about you. Setting boundaries can actually help filter out those who don't truly value you, leaving space for healthier relationships. Lastly, some people think that having boundaries means you're rigid and inflexible. But boundaries aren't set in stone. They can change and evolve as you do. It's about knowing your limits in the present moment and being open to reassessing them as you grow and change. So, let's set the record straight. Boundaries are not a sign of weakness or selfishness, but a demonstration of self-love and respect. They're essential for healthy relationships and a healthy you. And remember, it's not just about setting boundaries, but respecting those of others, too. It's a two-way street, and that, my friends, is the beauty of boundaries. Let's recap what we've learned about boundaries in relationships. We've established that boundaries are crucial for maintaining healthy relationships. They create a safe space where both partners feel respected and valued. Without them, relationships can easily slip into toxic and unhealthy dynamics. We've also explored the various types of boundaries that can be set in relationships. Physical boundaries involve setting limits on physical touch and intimacy, while emotional boundaries revolve around how much emotional support and energy you're willing to give and receive. Intellectual boundaries pertain to what you're open to discussing and debating, and spiritual boundaries concern what aspects of your personal beliefs and values you're comfortable sharing. Financial boundaries dictate how you spend and save money, and time boundaries determine how much time you're willing to spend with others. We've discussed the art of setting boundaries too. It's a skill that requires clear communication, mutual understanding, and respect. Remember, it's not about being selfish or controlling, it's about protecting your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. We've also debunked some common misconceptions about boundaries. They're not a sign of an unhealthy relationship, but rather a tool to keep relationships healthy. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're being selfish or unloving. On the contrary, it's an act of self-love and respect for both yourself and your partner. With these insights, you're now equipped to recognize the importance of boundaries, understand their different types, set them effectively, and debunk common misconceptions. Remember that setting boundaries is a continuous process, and it's okay to adjust them as you and your relationship evolve. Remember, setting healthy boundaries is an act of self-love and respect, so don't be afraid to establish them in your relationships. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. If you would like to see more uplifting and heartfelt relationship advice, please like and subscribe to our channel.